The office door clicked shut, the sound sharp and final, like a guillotine slicing through the hum of fluorescent lights. My heart lurched as I turned to see Lauren, my boss, standing there, her hand still on the lock, her eyes unreadable in the half-light. I should have known then that this night would unravel everything I thought I knew about myself. It was late, nearly 9 p.m., and the Manhattan skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our 23rd floor office. The rest of the team had long since left, their desks littered with coffee cups and post-it notes, remnants of another grueling day at Harper & Stone Advertising. I was the last one here as usual, hunched over my laptop, tweaking a pitch for a client who probably wouldn't even read it. Lauren had stayed too, which wasn't unusual. She was the kind of boss who worked harder than anyone, her ambition a quiet fire that both intimidated and inspired me. "Ellie, you're still here," she'd said earlier, her voice low, almost teasing, as she leaned against my cubicle. Lauren was 29, only 4 years older than me, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd already conquered the world. Short, tousled brown hair framed her sharp features, and her tailored blazer hugged her frame like it was made for her. She was magnetic, the kind of person who made you want to be better just to keep up. I'd laughed, brushing off her comment, but my stomach had twisted. I'd been at the company for a year, and Lauren had always been intense. Not in a cruel way, but in the way she noticed things, details, glances, the way I'd linger a second too long when she handed me a file. I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining the spark in her eyes, the way her fingers brushed mine during late-night strategy sessions. I was Ellie Harper, small-town girl turned New York dreamer, straight as an arrow, or so I thought. I had a boyfriend, Mark, back in my hometown, waiting for me to settle down. But Lauren, she was a complication I hadn't planned for. Tonight, though, something felt different. The air was heavier, the silence between us charged. When she locked the door, I froze, my fingers hovering over my keyboard. "Lauren, what's?" I started, but she cut me off, stepping closer, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady but laced with something raw, something that made my pulse race. She stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Sandalwood and something floral intoxicating. "You've been avoiding me." I opened my mouth to protest, but the words caught in my throat. She wasn't wrong. For weeks, I'd been dodging her, keeping our interactions brief, professional. Ever since that night at the company gala, when we'd stood too close on the balcony, her hand grazing my waist as she pointed out the constellations. I'd felt it then, a pull, a dangerous warmth that made me question everything. I'd spent the weeks since burying it, drowning it in deadlines and excuses. "I haven't," I lied, my voice barely above a whisper. My laptop screen glowed faintly, casting her face in soft blues and whites. She looked at me, really looked, and I felt exposed, like she could see every thought I'd been trying to hide. "Ellie," she said, softer now, stepping closer still. "You can't keep running from this." I stood, my chair scraping against the floor, needing space, needing to breathe. "There's nothing to run from," I said, but my voice shook, betraying me. My hands trembled as I grabbed my notebook, clutching it like a shield. I'd always been good at pretending, at fitting into the boxes people expected of me. Good daughter, good girlfriend, good employee. But Lauren saw through it all, and it terrified me. She moved closer, her eyes locked on mine, and I realized I was backed against the desk, nowhere left to go. "You feel it too," she said, not a question but a statement, her voice low and certain. "I know you do." My breath hitched. I wanted to deny it, to laugh it off, to tell her she was wrong. But the truth was clawing its way out, and I wasn't sure I could stop it. The office, with its sterile walls and humming computers, suddenly felt like a confessional, and Lauren was waiting for my truth. I'm not like that," I managed, but the words felt hollow, like they belonged to someone else. I thought of Mark, of the life I'd planned, of the expectations I'd carried since I was a kid in Ohio, dreaming of something bigger, but never this. Never her. Lauren's expression softened, but she didn't back away. "Ellie, you don't have to be anything you're not ready to be," she said. "But don't lie to yourself. Not here. Not with me." The silence stretched between us, heavy with possibility. My heart pounded, and I felt the edge of the desk digging into my palms. I wanted to run, to stay, to scream, to pull her closer, all at once. And then, before I could think, she reached out, her fingers brushing my wrist, and the world tilted. It wasn't a kiss, not yet. It was just a touch, featherlight, but it burned through me, unraveling every defense I'd built. I looked at her, at the vulnerability in her eyes, and realized she was just as scared as I was. Lauren, the unshakable, brilliant Lauren, was standing there, risking everything. "I can't," I whispered, but my voice cracked and I didn't pull away. Her fingers stayed on my wrist, warm and steady, and I knew in that moment that I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't come back from. The office was silent except for the faint hum of the city outside, the distant wail of a siren, the ticking of the clock on the wall. I looked at Lauren, and for the first time I let myself see her, not as my boss, not as a complication, but as someone who saw me, truly saw me, and wasn't afraid of what she found. "What are we doing?" I asked, my voice barely audible, but I already knew the answer. We were crossing a line, one that would change everything. And as her hand tightened on mine, I wasn't sure I wanted to stop. The air between us was electric, a current I couldn't ignore. Lauren's hand lingered on my wrist, her touch a quiet question, and I stood frozen, caught between fear and a longing I hadn't named until now. The office, with its sterile order, felt like it was collapsing into this one moment, this one choice. I pulled my hand away, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to think, to breathe. "This is wrong," I said, my voice trembling, but even as I spoke, I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince. My eyes darted to the door, still locked, a barrier between us and the world outside. Lauren didn't move, but her gaze held me in place. "Is it?" she asked, her voice soft but piercing. "Or is it just new?" She took a step back, giving me space, but her presence filled the room, undeniable. "Ellie, I'm not asking you to have all the answers. I'm just asking you to be honest." Honest. The word hit like a stone. I'd spent my life being honest with everyone else. My parents, Mark, my friends. Telling them what they wanted to hear. Fitting into their version of me. But with Lauren I couldn't hide. She saw the parts of me I'd buried, the parts one didn't even understand myself. I turned away, staring at the city lights, trying to anchor myself in something familiar. New York had been my escape, my chance to be more than the girl from Ohio who followed the rules. But this was a freedom I hadn't dared imagine. I thought of Mark again, his steady voice on our weekly calls, his plans for a house, a family, a life that felt like a script I was supposed to follow. But standing here with Lauren's eyes on me, that script felt like a lie. "I have a boyfriend," I said, the words spilling out like a reflex. It was true, but it felt flimsy, like a paper shield. Mark was safe, predictable, everything I thought I wanted. But he didn't make my heart race like this, didn't make me feel like I was teetering on the edge of something alive. Lauren nodded, her expression unreadable. "I know," she said simply, "but that's not what this is about." She paused, then added, "This is about you, Ellie. What you want, not what you think you're supposed to want." Her words cut through me, sharp and true. I turned to face her, my chest tight. What if I don't know what I want? I asked, my voice raw. What if this, whatever this is, ruins everything? Lauren's lips curved into a small, sad smile. "It might," she admitted. "But pretending it doesn't exist? That'll ruin you more." I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but I couldn't. The truth was there, pulsing between us, undeniable. I'd felt it for months, the way my eyes lingered on her, the way my skin tingled when she was near, the way I'd lie awake at night replaying our conversations, searching for meaning in her words. I told myself it was admiration, respect, anything but this. But now, with her standing there, vulnerable and unafraid, I couldn't lie anymore. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. It was the most honest thing I'd ever said. Lauren's eyes softened and she stepped closer, not touching me but close enough that I could feel her warmth. "Me too," she said. "But I'd rather be scared than live a lie." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I thought of my life back home, the expectations waiting for me, the weight of being the perfect daughter, the perfect girlfriend. And then I thought of Lauren, of the way she challenged me, saw me, made me feel like I could be more than the sum of other people's dreams. Before I could stop myself, I reached out, my fingers brushing hers. It was a small gesture, but it felt seismic, like the world was shifting beneath my feet. Her hand closed around mine, warm and steady, and for a moment we just stood there, the city humming outside, the office silent around us. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice trembling but curious, alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Lauren's eyes searched mine and I saw something flicker there, hope maybe, or something deeper. "We figure it out," she said. "Together." The word together hit me like a wave, carrying with it 1,000 possibilities. I didn't know what it meant, not yet, but I knew I wanted to find out. I squeezed her hand, my heart racing, and for the first time, I let myself imagine a life where I chose what I wanted, not what I was supposed to want. But the moment was fleeting. A sharp knock on the door shattered the silence and we both froze. "Lauren? Ellie? You in there?" It was Tom, the night security guard, his voice muffled through the door. Lauren's hand slipped from mine and she stepped back, her face a mask of calm professionalism. "Yeah, we're here," she called, her voice steady like nothing had happened. She glanced at me, a silent question in her eyes, and I nodded, my heart still pounding. She unlocked the door and Tom poked his head in, oblivious to the tension in the room. "Just checking," he said. "You two working late again?" "Always," Lauren said with a smile, but her eyes flicked to me, and I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As Tom left, I gathered my things, my hands shaking. Lauren watched me, her expression unreadable, but there was a promise in her gaze, a quiet vow that this was only the beginning. I left the office that night with my notebook clutched to my chest, my mind spinning, my heart full of questions I was finally ready to answer. The next morning, I woke to the blare of my alarm, my apartment still dark, the city outside just beginning to stir. My head was a tangle of last night's memories, Lauren's hand on mine, her words cutting through my defenses, the way my heart had betrayed me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd dreamed it all. But I hadn't. The truth was etched into every nerve, every heartbeat. I was falling for her and it terrified me. I dragged myself out of bed, the weight of it all pressing down as I got ready for work. The mirror showed the same Ellie, long blonde hair, tired eyes, a nervous smile, but inside I was unraveling, caught between who I'd been and who I might become. At the office, everything felt different. The familiar hum of phones and keyboards, the clatter of coffee mugs, the chatter of my colleagues, it all seemed distant, like I was watching it through glass. I kept my head down, avoiding Lauren's office, but every time I glanced at her closed door, my stomach twisted. I wanted to see her, to talk to her, to figure out what together meant. But I was also terrified of what came next. By noon, I couldn't avoid her any longer. She called me into her office for a meeting about the client pitch, her voice calm and professional over the intercom. I grabbed my notebook, my hands clammy, and walked in, bracing myself. She was at her desk, her brown hair catching the sunlight streaming through the window, her blazer draped over her chair. She looked up, and for a split second, her eyes softened, a flicker of last night's vulnerability. "Ellie," she said, her tone neutral but warm. "Close the door." My heart skipped, but I did as she asked, the click of the latch echoing last night's tension. I sat across from her, clutching my notebook, trying to focus on the pitch. But her presence was overwhelming, every gesture pulling me back to that moment when our hands had touched. We went through the slides, her feedback sharp and precise, but there was an undercurrent, a silent conversation in the way she looked at me, the way her voice softened when she said my name. I nodded, scribbled notes, tried to act normal, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying her words. "We figure it out. Together." When we finished, she leaned back, her eyes searching mine. "You okay?" she asked, her voice low, like she was asking about more than just work. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind." She didn't push, but her gaze held me, steady and knowing. "If you need to talk, I'm here," she said. "About anything." I swallowed, my throat tight. "Thanks," I managed, standing to leave. But as I reached the door, I turned back, unable to stop myself. Lauren, about last night. Her phone rang, cutting me off, and she held up a finger, her expression apologetic. Hold that thought, she said, answering the call. I lingered for a moment, then slipped out, my heart pounding, the words I'd wanted to say still trapped inside. The rest of the day was a blur. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the chaos in my head, but Lauren was everywhere. In the emails she sent, the meetings she led, the way her laugh carried across the office. By evening I was exhausted, not from work but from the effort of pretending I was fine. That night I called Mark, needing something familiar, something safe. His voice was warm, steady, the same as always. "Miss you, babe," he said. And I could picture him in his small Ohio apartment, surrounded by the life we'd planned. But as we talked, I felt the distance between us, not just in miles but in everything unspoken. I didn't tell him about Lauren, about the office, about the part of me that was waking up. I couldn't. Not yet. When I hung up, I sat on my couch, staring at my notebook, the one I'd clutched like a lifeline last night. I opened it, flipping to a blank page, and started writing. Not notes for work, but thoughts, feelings, fragments of the truth I was too scared to say out loud. I don't know who I am anymore, I wrote. But I know I can't go back. The next day, Lauren caught me in the break room, her presence pulling me out of my thoughts. "You didn't finish what you were going to say," she said, pouring coffee, her tone casual but her eyes intent. I froze, my mug halfway to my lips. I don't know how to say it, I admitted, my voice barely audible over the hum of the coffee machine. She stepped closer, her voice low. "Try," she said, not a command but a plea. "I'm listening." I looked at her, at the way she stood there, unafraid, waiting for me to meet her halfway. And for the first time I wanted to. I wanted to be brave, to be honest, to be the person she saw in me. But before I could speak, a colleague walked in, breaking the moment, and I slipped away, my heart racing, my words still unsaid. That night I went home and wrote again, filling pages with questions, fears, and a growing certainty. I was falling for Lauren, not just as a crush but as something deeper, something that felt like truth. And as I wrote, I realized I wasn't just scared of what I felt. I was scared of losing it, of letting fear win. The next morning, I walked into the office with a new resolve. I didn't know what would happen, but I knew I couldn't keep running. Lauren was in a meeting when I arrived, but I left a note on her desk, simple but bold. "Can we talk? Tonight?" The note sat on Lauren's desk all day, a quiet promise burning a hole in my resolve. I kept glancing at her office, half expecting her to call me in, but she was swamped with meetings, her door opening and closing as clients and colleagues streamed in and out. Each time I saw her, my heart lurched, caught between anticipation and dread. By 7 p.m., the office was emptying out, the city outside glowing under a blanket of twilight. I stayed late again, tweaking the same pitch I'd been obsessing over, but really I was waiting for her to find the note, waiting for the moment we'd face this thing between us head on. My notebook lay open on my desk, filled with the words I'd poured out last night, a map of my confusion and courage. Finally I heard her voice. "Ellie." It was soft, almost hesitant, and I looked up to see her standing at my cubicle, the note in her hand. Her brown hair was slightly mussed, her blazer gone, her sleeves rolled up like she'd been fighting her own battles all day. "You want to talk?" I nodded, my throat tight, and followed her to her office. The door clicked shut behind us, and the sound brought back that night, the lock, the moment everything had shifted. But this time I wasn't running. She sat on the edge of her desk, the note still in her hand, her eyes searching mine. "What's on your mind?" she asked, her voice gentle but direct, like she knew this was bigger than a work conversation. I took a deep breath, my hands twisting together. "I've been thinking about what you said." I started, my voice shaky but determined. "About being honest. About us." Her expression didn't change, but her eyes softened, and I saw something flicker there. Hope, maybe, or relief. "And?" she prompted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared," I admitted, the words spilling out. "I've never felt like this before. Not with anyone. Not with Mark. Not with anyone I've ever dated. I don't know what it means or what I'm supposed to do, but I know I can't keep pretending it's not there. Lauren's lips parted, but she didn't speak, letting me continue. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. I've spent my whole life doing what I'm supposed to do, I said. Being the good girl, following the plan. But with you, it's different. You make me want to be brave, to be me, even if I don't know who that is yet. For a moment, she just looked at me, her eyes bright with something I couldn't name. Then she stood, closing the distance between us, her hand reaching for mine. Ellie, she said, her voice thick with emotion, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the first step. Her fingers laced through mine, and the warmth of her touch grounded me, steadying the chaos in my chest. What if I messed this up? I asked, my voice barely audible. What if I hurt you or me or? You won't, she said, her voice firm. Not if we're honest. Not if we do this together. That word again, together. It was a lifeline, a promise, a challenge. I looked at her, at the woman who'd turned my world upside down, and I felt something shift inside me, something brave and new. Before I could overthink it, I leaned in, closing the gap between us, and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, like we were both testing the waters. But then her hand cupped my face, and the kiss deepened, a rush of warmth and certainty that drowned out every doubt. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a confession, a surrender, a beginning. I felt alive, like every part of me was waking up for the first time. When we pulled apart, breathless, her forehead rested against mine, her eyes bright with a mix of joy and fear. Ellie, she whispered. Are you sure? I nodded, my heart racing but certain. I'm sure, I said, and I meant it. For the first time, I wasn't running from myself. But the world didn't stop for us. The next day, reality crashed in. Rumors started swirling, whispers in the break room, sideways glances from colleagues. Someone had seen us leave the office together, had noticed the way we looked at each other. By noon, I overheard 2 coworkers gossiping about Lauren's new favorite, their voices dripping with judgment. I felt exposed, raw, like my heart was on display for the whole office to dissect. I avoided Lauren's gaze during our team meeting, my face burning as I tried to focus on the client pitch. But she was steady, professional, her voice calm as she led the discussion, like nothing had changed. Except everything had. After the meeting, she pulled me aside, her expression serious. We need to be careful, she said, her voice low. This place. It's not kind to people like us. People like us. I echoed, the words heavy. I hadn't thought of myself that way before, but now it felt true. And terrifying. I don't regret it, she said quickly, her hand brushing mine, hidden by the wall of her cubicle. But we need to figure out how to navigate this. For both our sakes. I nodded, my throat tight. I wanted to be brave, to hold her hand in front of everyone, but the weight of the office, the city, the world, it was too much, too soon. We agreed to keep things quiet, to figure out what this was before the world decided for us. But that night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Coming to visit next week, it read. Can't wait to see you. My heart sank, the weight of my old life crashing into the new one I was just beginning to build. Mark's text sat like a stone in my chest, heavy and unyielding. I stared at my phone, the words blurring as I tried to reconcile the life I'd left behind with the one I was stumbling into. Lauren's kiss still lingered on my lips, a quiet revolution, but Mark's visit loomed like a storm on the horizon. I didn't tell Lauren right away. I couldn't. The next few days at the office were a tightrope walk. Stolen glances, brief touches when no one was looking, moments that felt like secrets we were both desperate to keep. But the rumors didn't stop. If anything, they grew, fed by the office's relentless gossip mill. I caught snippets of conversations. Lauren's always been too close to her. Ellie's getting special treatment. And each one chipped away at my resolve. Lauren noticed. During a late-night work session, as we pored over spreadsheets in her office, she looked up, her eyes narrowing. You're quiet, she said, setting down her pen. What's going on? I hesitated, my fingers tracing the edge of my notebook. Mark's coming to visit, I said finally, my voice flat. Next week. Her face didn't change, but I saw the flicker in her eyes, a shadow of hurt she quickly masked. "Okay," she said, leaning back. "What does that mean for you?" I didn't know how to answer. Mark was my past, my safety net, the person I promised a future to. But Lauren was my present, my truth, the one who made me feel like I could be more than I'd ever dared. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice breaking. "I don't know how to do this." She reached across the desk, her hand covering mine, her touch steadying me. "You don't have to decide everything right now," she said. "But you need to be honest with him. And with yourself." I nodded, tears prickling my eyes. I wanted to be brave, to choose her, to choose me, but the weight of expectation, of Mark, of my family, of the life I'd always known was crushing. "What if I can't?" I whispered. "What if I'm not strong enough?" Lauren's eyes softened and she squeezed my hand. "You are," she said. "You're stronger than you know." But I didn't feel strong. Not when Mark arrived, stepping off the train at Penn Station with his familiar smile and a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He hugged me, his arms warm and safe, and for a moment I wanted to sink into him, to pretend nothing had changed. We spent the day wandering the city, eating at our favorite diner, laughing like we used to. But every laugh felt hollow, every touch a reminder of what I was hiding. That night, over dinner in my tiny apartment, he sensed it. "You're different," he said, his fork pausing midair. "What's going on, Ellie?" I froze, my heart pounding. I wanted to tell him, to spill everything, Lauren, the kiss, the way my world had shifted, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I shook my head, forcing a smile. "Just work," I said. "It's been intense." He didn't push, but his eyes lingered, searching, and I knew he didn't believe me. When he left the next day, promising to call, I felt a pang of guilt but also relief. I wasn't ready to let him go, but I wasn't ready to hold on either. Back at the office, things escalated. A coworker confronted me in the break room, her voice low but sharp. "People are talking, Ellie," she said. "You and Lauren. It's not professional." Her words stung, not because they were true, but because they reduced what we had to something cheap, something shameful. I went to Lauren, my hands shaking as I closed her office door. "They know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Or they think they know." Lauren's jaw tightened, but she didn't look surprised. "I heard," she said. "I'll handle it." "How?" I asked, panic rising. "What if this costs you your job? Or mine?" She stood, rounding the desk to stand in front of me, her hands on my shoulders. "It won't," she said, her voice firm. "I won't let it. But we need to be smart. No more late nights, no more closed doors. Not until things settle." I nodded, but my chest ached. I didn't want to hide, to treat what we had like a secret to be ashamed of. But I also didn't want to lose everything. My job, my reputation, the life I'd built. "What are we doing, Lauren?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Is this worth it?" Her eyes searched mine, and for a moment I thought she might pull away. But then she leaned in, kissing me softly, fiercely, like she was answering my question with her whole being. "You're worth it," she whispered against my lips. "We're worth it." That night I wrote in my notebook again, the pages filling with my fears, my hopes, my truth. "I love her," I wrote, the words staring back at me, bold and terrifying. "And I'm not sorry." But the world wasn't done with us. The next morning, an email from HR landed in my inbox, requesting a meeting. My heart sank as I read the words. Concerns regarding workplace conduct. Lauren got the same email, and when our eyes met across the office, I saw the same fear mirrored in her gaze. The HR meeting was scheduled for the next afternoon, and the hours leading up to it felt like a lifetime. I barely slept, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios, losing my job, losing Lauren, losing myself. My notebook, now a lifeline, lay open on my bed, its pages filled with my truth, but I wasn't sure if I was brave enough to live it. Lauren was calm when we met outside the HR office, her posture straight, her eyes steady. "We'll be okay," she said, her voice low, but I saw the tension in her jaw, the way her fingers twitched at her sides. She was scared too, but she was fighting, and that gave me courage. The HR rep, a stern woman named Carol, sat us down in a sterile conference room, her expression unreadable. "We've received complaints," she began, her voice clipped. Concerns about inappropriate behavior between you two. This is a professional environment, and we need to ensure boundaries are respected. My face burned, but Lauren spoke first, her voice calm but firm. Can you specify the complaints? She asked. We're entitled to know what we're being accused of. Carol hesitated, then listed vague allegations, late-night meetings, closed doors, perceived favoritism. It was all circumstantial, but the implications were clear. Someone had seen us or guessed, and now we were under scrutiny. We've done nothing wrong, Lauren said, her tone unwavering. We've been working on a high-stakes client pitch. Late nights are part of the job. If anyone has an issue with my management, they can address it directly. I nodded, my throat tight, grateful for her strength. We're just doing our jobs, I added, my voice quieter but steady. Carol's eyes flicked between us, assessing. Be that as it may, she said. We need to maintain a professional environment. I'm recommending you both attend a workplace conduct seminar, and we'll be monitoring your interactions. Any further complaints, and there will be consequences. We left the meeting shaken but intact, our jobs safe for now. Outside, Lauren grabbed my hand, pulling me into an empty stairwell. We're okay, she said, her voice fierce. They can't take this from us. But the weight of it lingered. The office felt like a minefield. Every glance a risk, every touch a rebellion. We kept our distance, communicating through emails and brief, professional exchanges, but it felt like losing a part of myself. I missed her, her laugh, her warmth, the way she made me feel like I could be anything. That night, I called Mark again, needing to face the truth. We need to talk, I said, my voice trembling. In person. He came back to New York that weekend, and we sat in a quiet cafe, the city buzzing around us. I told him everything, Lauren, the kiss, the way I was changing. His face fell, but he listened, his hands clenched around his coffee mug. I love you, Ellie, he said when I finished, his voice breaking. But I can't compete with this. I can't be what you need. Tears streamed down my face as I nodded, my heart breaking for him. For us, for the life we'd planned. I'm sorry, I whispered, and I meant it. But as he walked away, I felt a strange relief, like a weight had lifted. I was free, but I was also terrified. I went to Lauren's apartment that night, needing her, needing us. She opened the door, her eyes softening when she saw me. Mark's gone, I said, my voice raw. I told him. She pulled me inside, her arms wrapping around me, and I sank into her, the world falling away. I'm here, she whispered, her lips brushing my forehead. We'll figure this out. We spent the night talking, laughing, crying, our hands intertwined, our hearts open. For the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. But the office loomed, a reminder that our love was a risk, a rebellion against a world that wasn't ready for us. The next week, the rumors intensified. A coworker confronted Lauren in a meeting, accusing her of bias, of giving me opportunities one hadn't earned. Lauren shut it down, her voice sharp, but the damage was done. The office was splitting, loyalties fracturing, and we were at the center. That night, Lauren came to my apartment, her face pale. I got a call from corporate, she said, her voice tight. They're considering transferring one of us to Chicago. My heart stopped. Chicago was a world away. A death sentence for what we'd just begun. They can't do that, I said, panic rising. We haven't done anything wrong. They can, she said, her eyes dark. And they might. Unless we fight. I looked at her, at the woman who changed everything, and I knew I couldn't lose her. Not now, not when I was finally learning who I was. Then we fight, I said, my voice steady, my heart full. The threat of Chicago hung over us like a storm cloud, dark and unrelenting. Lauren and I spent the next few days strategizing, our evenings filled with hushed conversations in her apartment, our hands clasped as we mapped out our fight. We weren't just fighting for our jobs, we were fighting for us, for the right to love without shame, without fear. We started with HR. Lauren requested a formal meeting, armed with documentation of our work, our results, proof that our relationship hadn't compromised our professionalism. I sat beside her, my heart pounding, as we laid out our case. We followed every rule, Lauren said, her voice steady but fierce. The complaints against us are baseless. rooted in prejudice, not evidence. Carol, the HR rep, listened, her expression neutral, but I saw a flicker of discomfort in her eyes. "We'll review your case," she said finally. "But corporate is pushing for resolution. A transfer is still on the table." We left the meeting drained but determined. That night Lauren held me close, her breath warm against my neck. "We're not giving up," she whispered. "No matter what." But the office was a battlefield. Some colleagues supported us, their quiet nods and kind words a lifeline, but others were vocal, their judgment sharp. "It's not about you being. You know," one coworker said to me, her voice low. "It's just not professional." The words stung, but I refused to let them define us. We decided to take a stand. Lauren proposed we address the team, not to confess but to reclaim our narrative. The next morning we stood together in the conference room, the entire staff watching, some curious, some hostile. Lauren spoke first, her voice clear and strong. "There's been talk," she said, "about Ellie and me. We're not here to confirm or deny rumors. We're here to do our jobs, to deliver for this company, and to be treated with the same respect as anyone else." I took a deep breath, my hands trembling, and added, "We're not asking for approval. We're asking for fairness." The room was silent, but I felt a shift, a crack in the wall of judgment. Not everyone was with us, but some were, and that was enough. The turning point came unexpectedly. A major client, impressed by our pitch, sent a glowing email to corporate, praising our teamwork, our creativity, our results. It was a lifeline, proof that our work spoke louder than the gossip. Corporate backed off, the transfer threat fading, and while the office wasn't perfect, the tide began to turn. Lauren and I grew stronger, our love a quiet rebellion against a world that tried to tear us apart. We stopped hiding, holding hands in the break room, sharing smiles in meetings, living our truth in small, brave ways. Some colleagues warmed to us, others didn't, but we didn't need their approval. We had each other. Months later, on a crisp fall evening, we stood on a rooftop overlooking the city, the skyline glittering like a promise. Lauren pulled me close, her arms warm around me, and I felt whole, like every piece of me had finally found its place. "I love you," she said, her voice soft but certain, and I smiled, tears in my eyes. "I love you too," I said, and for the first time I wasn't afraid. I thought of my notebook, now filled with pages of courage, of truth, of us. I thought of the girl I'd been, the one who'd followed the rules, and I realized she was still part of me, but she wasn't all of me. I was Ellie Harper, and I was enough. We kissed under the stars, the city humming below, and I knew this was only the beginning. Love wasn't easy, not for us, not in a world that sometimes refused to understand. But it was worth it. Every risk, every fight, every moment of fear and joy. We'd locked the office door that night, not to hide, but to find ourselves. And in finding each other, we'd found something even greater: the courage to be free.